Listeners, thank you for being here today. And my intention through today's episode is to encourage women worldwide to recognize and embrace their true potential and believe in themselves. It's the only women entrepreneur show that focuses on an intentional conversation to pass on the lessons that we have learned from our life experiences. And I'm excited because on the show today, I have with me Cyndi Wilkins, the sole proprietor of The Healing Element, fantastic writer, blogger, the contributing author for the Fourfold Formula, all things wellness related, and my dear friend. Now, she's located in Marblehead, north of Boston, and has been practicing the art of therapeutic massage, mind and body work for a very long time. And her approach to healing is recognizing the mind and the body work together in creating health for us. So thank you, Cyndi, for being here on the podcast with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been so looking forward to this conversation.
We can't wait to hear about your intentional transformation journey. I keep telling everyone women are a celebration to the world every single day. And this series, the main purpose of it is to focus on purpose-driven achievements because I want to inspire women to go ahead and start exhibiting their true potential. So could you tell us, why do we need to pass the baton on? What would we benefit from passing the baton on?
Well, I think as women especially, but anyone in particular, I think it's very important for all of us to do the best we can in our chosen interests, run that race, run that relay race, and gain as much ground as we can. And as women, that's very important because we've got a lot of ground to make up here. And we want to pass that on to the next generation so that they can take it with them going forward.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of obstacles for women. I don't mean to constantly pull that woman card, but we have started out, kind of at the back of the pack.
Oh, absolutely, Cyndi. I mean, we met on BB or LinkedIn about 5 years ago, and that was through the comments section of one of my blog posts. And man, I remember that. I mean, I remember the blog post because the post was about my dad. And I'd love to tell you that you're someone who really makes someone want to stop and listen to what you want to say. And I remember the post where you had commented, it was dedicated to my dad. And I'd actually pulled up that comment so that I could read it here today. Sending you warm hugs, Fatima Williams. It's so very difficult for little girls to say goodbye to their daddies. That child's heart within is broken. But the women we are now will nurture our souls so that we can move beyond the pain and keep living. Do you remember that?
I do. I'm teary-eyed listening to you because I'm quite certain that was probably right around the time I was dealing with the passing of my own dad. So we were on we were experiencing that loss in at the same time.
And I could actually feel that energy passing on from you, even though you were thousands of miles away. And, that is why I think it's really important for us as women to be able to share what we are going through so that, the other person also knows that it's okay, to be vulnerable sometimes. It's okay to feel the way we're feeling and not really put ourselves in a position of blame or guilt all the time, because I think at that time when you actually lose someone, you automatically move into that space where you kind of look for something to hold on to. And I think I kind of found a very lovely space to do that. Could you tell us, what about you, Cyndi? And I know both of us lost our dads. How has this How has this helped you in your transformation journey?
Well, one of the things my dad always instilled in me is, if you want something in life, you've got to work hard for it. There are no giveaways. It takes effort, focused effort and intent. And during that journey that I was going through with him while he was passing, I was doing the same thing that you were doing. I was writing about it. I was journaling. I was getting it down on paper so I could remember all of the details, all of the little nuances. It was a very special time for me because, in life, we weren't really close. As I was growing up, we were very distant. We had our reasons. I won't get into them right now, but it's interesting because I did write about them in the story for this book that I was just a contributing author for, and I shared this story that I wrote about my dad and a beautiful experience that I had with him in his moments, his last moments as he was passing. So it was very cathartic for me. And it was cathartic for a lot of other people when I initially shared it online to like LinkedIn, which is where we met, and BB, and I probably shared it across a multitude of platforms. People began to write into me and say, oh my God, this was so special. I wish I had been there for my mom, dad, whoever, when they were passing, because they felt like they missed something. They missed an opportunity to mend fences, maybe. There was a lot of that for me in those last couple of years of his life. There was a lot of mending of fences and building of bridges back to each other. So in sharing that and being vulnerable about it, my hope was that it would touch somebody else and inspire them to perhaps do the same thing. Write it down, get it down, go see that person that you've been so distant from throughout your whole life, because especially, our parents, they're not here with us forever. And they teach us these wonderful lessons. And even if we have these tumultuous relationships with them, there's always room for healing. And the best time to do it is when they're still here.
Very true. Very true. It's interesting you say that, because I would say some of the conversations that sparked our relationship also was centered around that. And, it did inspire me. And I was there in the comment section because, we know each other for a while now. And I think that was the most beautiful thing to do, because we often, taking ourselves off from that space for a moment and reflecting on the relationship itself, and not on what we missed out, but what we actually had with them, right? And I think once we centered ourselves around that, we started to embrace the entire journey. And I really thank you for having done that, because it did inspire me as well. So coming back to the women entrepreneurs in general, I keep reading so much, and this entire podcast was inspired by an article I wrote in 2018 about the challenges women entrepreneurs face. And despite there being a rise in women-owned businesses, female still face a lot of challenges, And what do you think is that one thing or situation or person that helped you in the implementation of the behaviors and actions that got you to where you are today?
Well, honestly, I think speaking of the challenges we face, speaking to that first, I think the biggest one we women face is when we want to have our families. When we go through those stages of we want to have a child. And just as an example, jump into the Wayback Machine here 20 some odd years ago, and we were contemplating having a child. And it's very difficult because for women, maybe we've gained a lot of ground since then, but then, it was like, for women, it was like either you stay out in the workplace or you stay at home and you have that child, and take care of that child, take care of your family. There was no work-life balance there. So for me, what I wanted to do in my life was find a way to create that work-life balance. At the time, I had been working for the Postal Service as a letter carrier, and I had watched many of my female colleagues going through the motions of, they were having children, but they weren't there for them. You know what I mean? They weren't, they'd get calls would come into the office, your child is sick at school and we're out on the street. We can't be reached. It was before we even had the cell phones out there with us. So, and, God forbid any of the men in the office came out to find us out on the route and tell us our kids were sick, right? So I knew I didn't want that. If we were going to have a child, I wanted to create a situation where I was at home. I could still work from home and be mom too. And that's what we strive for as women, especially women entrepreneurs. We want to be a part of the workforce, but we want to be moms too. And we want to find ways of creating that healthy balance in our lives.
Absolutely. You don't want to be torn apart between the two people that you want to be.
Right.
Absolutely. And when you decided to take that step of, getting on this journey you are, what is that one decision or behavior apart from that? Like what actually pushed you to take action to become who you are today?
Well, I would actually say it's, a real heartfelt desire, a desire to make that move. It's like my dad always said, if you want it bad enough, you got to find a way to do it. And for me, I was always looking for ways to, I had always had a fascination with the mind-body connection. I had studied it for years, not formally, but on my own, and it just fascinated me. So I was always looking for ways in my outside world to bring that dream to life. Like, how do I take what I know here and apply it in my real world, as a practice? And, you look for the signs. I always tell people, look for the signs. They're all around you all the time. And at the time, a massage school opened up right down the street from my office. And I thought, there it is. It couldn't be any easier. Like I still worked full time, but I'd come into the office, I'd change my clothes and I'd go to night school. And I took some classes in massage therapy and eventually became certified. And once I did that, I knew this is it. This is your short little window. Launch, fly, little girl. Take that opportunity to fly, because they don't come around constantly. You have to know when the timing is right.
Absolutely. The awareness is important, right?
Right.
We have the signs, and a lot of us have a lot of signs most of the time, but the awareness that it's there, and we have the tools around us, but are we ready to use them? Is the question I had asked myself. And what are the tools that you had available? Yes, the parlor opened up and you went to night school, but what other tools do you think helped you, which was instrumental as well?
Well, I'll elaborate on what you just said about being ready. I mean, there's a preparedness that, this didn't happen right away for me. It took a couple of years for me to go through the motions of creating this experience for myself. I had to prepare. And in preparedness, we create resiliency, right? Because we feel like we're ready, we know what we're doing, we're ready to engage.
Yeah.
It's like ready for engagement. It's like just an analogy to use. You as a firefighter, you wouldn't run into a burning building without the proper equipment, right? Because if you do that, you're probably not going to survive. Same thing with this whole process. You need to lay the groundwork and prepare yourself for where it is you want to go, in terms of, how you want to engage, and be open to the change when the opportunity comes.
Absolutely. I mean, that is something very instrumental as well, because, if we do not take into consideration all these things, I think you end up getting burnt. And but
Mhm.
yes, they say it's okay to burn your fingers, but why do we have to do that when we can prepare ourselves and get in for the journey? And I think everything that we go through in our life prepares us for where we want to be in life. And preparation is happening from day one, since the day we are born, I would say. So,
Right. Well, correct in that. And we also want to make sure that we're making the proper connections too, that are relevant to what we want to do. Right. I mean, you want to certainly ask for help. Nobody goes it alone. No one is an island unto themselves. So don't be afraid to ask for help from family or friends or your community. How I first started out building my business was connecting with some physical therapists for referrals. And in turn, you always want to offer something back in return when someone helps you. So, I would offer them discounted massage sessions, and they would send me referrals. And, to this day, 20 years later, I'm still going strong, and I still get referrals from these same people.
beautiful, beautiful. And that is a beautiful message for today,
Mhm.
because people expect in return without giving. And, when we give, I realize that we get back 10 times more in fold, you know.
Mhm.
And that I love that you said that, because I remember giving, and in giving, we receive. I remember reading somewhere. So, Cindy, you talk a lot about mind-body connection, and I've even read a lot of your blog posts on the innate ability to heal. So can you tell us how does that actually happen? Someone who has never thought about healing, because that's not something they teach you in school, right? They don't tell you that you got to heal yourself, or you got to have this mind-body connection. In fact, I myself, I can be uh, I can accept that I never knew about all these things until I came into the online world and I started reading, even though I had psychology as a subject when I finished my diploma in teaching, which is a funny thing because, I didn't know about this thing. So could you tell us how it actually works? How can we heal ourselves?
Sure. Well, the interesting thing is you hit the nail right. You kind of pointed right to it immediately. They don't teach us these things in school. They really don't even teach us these things in conventional medicine either. Not to knock it, because, we certainly need it when it's necessary. But it's not something that we are familiar with. The idea, we're not really taught that we have that innate ability, that innate power to heal our bodies. And it's our bodies that know how to do it, right? So connecting with our bodies and listening to our bodies is so crucial,
Mhm.
because when we don't do that and we fight against them all the time, we just contribute to generating disease.
Right.
And I've been guilty of it myself, through the years. I mean, for years I dealt with chronic pain, chronic joint pain, and all of those sorts of things. And, like everybody else, we're kind of groomed to just hit the pill mill, just swallow handfuls of this and that, all the over-the-counter medications.
Yeah.
And then you'll have another problem, and we can medicate that too. That vicious circle,
Right.
until I connected with alternative therapies. And once I connected with alternative therapies, the massage and body work, the acupuncture, the chiropractic, the more somatic therapies, like breath work and Reiki and meditation, huge meditation. I began to feel better on multiple levels, not just physical level, but I began to feel better mentally, emotionally, in all different aspects of my life. And I knew I was on the right track because things began to flow more naturally, right? I wasn't fighting it anymore.
Right.
So that's how I knew I was on the right track in what I was studying and becoming more aware. And how we do this is we feed our minds with this information. and meditate on it. I know people say, ooh, meditation seems so silly.
Yes.
Sit in that uncomfortable lotus position. You don't have to do that. It's communicating with your body and being aware of it when it's trying to send a message to you, most of the time through pain and illness.
It's beautiful for you to have healed all of those years of chronic pain, which medicines and doctors couldn't do, just by understanding your body, understanding your mind, right?
That's key, because I understood through my interest in my research on mind body that it was more than just the body. Because when you think about the focus of conventional medicine, they're always looking for the physical cause of something to medicate the symptom. To medicate the symptom. Whereas I became very much more aware that it was the emotional body that was in connection with pain and illness that becomes chronic. There's a deeper underlying issue there. And you have to do a little digging. You have to do a little research for yourself, and you don't have that time when you walk into a doctor's office and they're looking to assess you in you get maybe 10 minutes now.
Yeah.
When you go in and see your doctor, right? They can't really know what's going on with you in a 10-minute time frame. So they're looking for an immediate symptom, but it doesn't really get to the cause, right?
Right. I mean, I think that is very instrumental in the healing journey as well, to understand the cause of why is it we're feeling this way, or why is it, I'm not able to go ahead and do something. And I think these factors are very important. Our listeners today may be wondering, yeah, we're talking about women entrepreneurship, but how is this going to help? I would say this is the foundation or the fulcrum on which the entire journey balances on. Because if we don't understand how our mind and body work, we cannot fully contribute to who we truly want to be. Do you agree with me, Cyndi?
Yeah, correct. Correct. And that's true for men too. Because we see, but the difference in one of the biggest differences that I see in, let's just say, the corporate world. Let's take the corporate world as an example, because it is, it's so clear to me, the differences between men and women. Men have been trained to suppress their emotions, to take it on the chin kind of thing. And a lot of times that ends up manifesting itself as aggressive behavior. Well, it happens that way in women too. Guess what? Our emotional bodies behave in very much the same way. But men tend to take that aggression and they express it outwardly, where women kind of turn it in on themselves. But the difference, and if women turn it outwardly, we're viewed as being, pardon the term, bitchy, right? We're bitchy, bitchy woman over there. But if a man does that in that corporate setting, he's assertive. He's assertive. He's getting the job done. He's not taking no. He's putting his foot down. So there's a big there's a difference. There's a double standard there in the way that we view men and women in our working world.
So how do you think we could be more assertive? How are you assertive in your journey? Because I know that we all are in the same world where, we have the other gender with us, but, we are all here together. I don't think it's a competition. People keep thinking it's a competition, and there's a lot of time and there's a lot of resources for everyone to enjoy the benefits of what this beautiful universe can give us, right? So how can we be assertive? What has made you assertive in this journey?
Having the conversations. Have the conversation. And it is, through the years, it has been kind of a competition between men and women, and it really shouldn't be. We shouldn't be competing with each other. But unfortunately, it has been, and the scales have been tipped in the wrong direction. But I think that, now that women are stepping into their power, and they certainly, have been, those scales are starting to, equalize. Yeah, we're becoming more and more assertive in ourselves, because we're not allowing ourselves to be put down, to be told that we can't do this or that, or we can't survive on our own. And we're doing that by, living living by our own example.
Yeah, and I can see a lot of men standing up right now. They are also voicing out. And I think that's been also a very major cause for, I think, women in general today, at least stepping up to the cause. And, I always tell that women need to support and mentor each other, but I can even see that it would be great if men come forward and mentor women as well. Because we all know if a woman is empowered, her not just her home, but her whole community is empowered. And, I think that is very, very important today. Don't you agree with me?
Yeah, and one of the most beautiful things I was seeing as I was, when my daughter was young, and I'd be out on the playground waiting for her to come out of school to pick her up. There was this, young man there waiting for his child too, and I just thought that was the most attractive thing. Like, good for you, Dad, stepping up and being dad. And, so I think there's more of a work-life balance for men too. They were never really afforded the opportunity to take some time off to be with their kids. And, when they were young, this young man's position was he had taken on the role of being dad, and mom was the head of household, the breadwinner, whatever you want to call her. So I just thought that was such an amazing thing. I'm like, oh, the scales are tipping. This is so wonderful. And I would have conversations with him all the time about it. I'm like, you are so brave. You are so brave.
Yes, we need to go ahead and acknowledge that as well. When I see someone doing something out of the way extraordinary, I take a minute to stop and acknowledge that so that that person would go ahead and do that even more. And, it's very important for us to actually not just inspire, but appreciate someone for whatever that is that they're trying to accomplish in their life. A little bit of, a little word of comfort is, we're not going to lose anything. And I think it's important to share our journey. So, could you tell us a little bit? I am actually excited about your book. So just give our listeners a little bit about the book so that they would know what it is about. And if they're interested, they could pick up a copy of it.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I'd love to. This has been such an exciting journey. I'm going to show you a little picture of it here.
Wow.
Formula for all things wellness. Wonderful. I mean, look at the size of this thing. It's a beautiful book with 40 plus co-authors, contributing authors. The co-authors in the book are Peggy Williams and Marcus Vettstein, who is an endocrinologist. So there's a lot of really helpful information in here on health, on what Peggy has called her wellness wheel, the 4 quadrants of wellness for our lives. And there's so much information in there. I can't touch upon it all at once, but I can tell you that the stories in this book are amazing. And, they're written by, a lot of them are written by regular people who've never even written a story before. They took a leap of faith in themselves, and they came out from behind the curtain, came out of the shadows, and they stepped into their own vulnerability and shared these amazing stories about, triumph over many different things, whether it be, loss of a loved one, like we just talked about, or a divorce, or an addiction, or, being overweight, some kind of issue that they really struggled with in their lives, and they found a way to overcome. So they're success stories, for all of these people. And it just, and I'm telling you, there is not anyone among you that will not find a piece of yourself walking along these pages, because they're so universal, these stories.
I have no doubt. Because I've been leading a little bit about you guys advertising the book. And I'm super excited to hear 40 transformational stories, all packed up into one book like a golden nugget, right? And, I think if one thing I want to take away from this conversation is take that leap of faith. I'm going to hold on to that. take that leap of faith. Don't you think that's all each of us need to be doing today?
Absolutely. And you know what? There is no greater investment that you can make in life than the one you make in yourself. Right?
I love that. I love that. Cyndi, thank you so much. It's been such an intentional conversation, and I hope our listeners can take away from us today what it means to actually go ahead and take that leap of faith and trust in yourself, in your abilities, and of course, seek out to people who have done that, been there, because if you're going to sit around and wait, we would have to keep waiting. So, one of the reasons for this podcast is so that people can understand that you can seek out people and reach out. And there are people who want to help, people like you, who want to share your successes. And, they could read the article that we had published on the Women Entrepreneur page as well. So I will be sharing links on how you can connect with Cyndi Wilkins. And if you're interested to know more about her book or buying her books, I will be sharing links on the podcast show notes and the blog post associated with this podcast. And you can also look for more information on fatimawilliams.me/intentionality podcast. And that's the podcast series that we are listening to today. And I hope each and every one of you have the most intentional journey. Thank you once again, Cyndi. Is there something you want to tell us listeners today before we close up?
Hey, just always be open to looking for ways to bringing your dreams to life. Everyone.
Love that. Love that. Thank you so much.